Hi guys, welcome back to the Cozy Corner. I've recently done a video where I reviewed my favourite reads of 2025, and today I will be doing a video on my least favourite reads of 2025. I had to flick back through my reading journal for last year to actually find titles I didn't really like this year, and the list is actually quite short. I had a really good reading year, which I feel in 2024 my list would have been a lot longer, but let's get into it. So the first book that I read in 2025, which I just really did not vibe with, was George Orwell's Animal Farm. And I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion because I know a lot of people really like George Orwell. I just did not vibe with this book. It made me feel quite angry. And maybe that's the point of it. Maybe it's written to make the reader really reflect on society and stir some emotion inside them. But I really, I just couldn't. Yeah, it made me really, really angry. It made me really anxious. I just finished reading it and I gave that one a 2.5 stars. But as I said, I did finish it, just will not be reading it again. The next book I read was The Appeal by Janice Hallett. Now, this book, I think the concept and the idea behind the storyline is really well thought out. But for me personally, I couldn't read it because instead of a narrative, all you have is an exchange of emails and text messages between the characters. And I found that really difficult to read. For some reason, I thought it was going to be quite easy to follow because I'm fine reading like diary entries. But I've really, really struggled with it. And I did end up DNFing it, which I was really sad about because it's a murder mystery. So there's this group of people who are put in on a theatre show and then somebody gets murdered, and then between the exchange of emails and text messages, as the reader, you have to figure out who the murderer is. So the idea and the concept is really clever. I really enjoyed that. For me, it was just the formatting. I couldn't get my head around the emails and the text messages, and yeah, as I said, I DNF'd it, but I also know people who have read it and they've really enjoyed it. The next book was a Jane Austen, and this one was another one that I was really sad that I didn't like, and it was Persuasion. And I really like Jane Austen. I really like Jane Austen's work. Pride and Prejudice is my favourite that I've read so far, although I've heard Emma is probably a masterpiece. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully get to read that this year. But Persuasion, I found it so boring. Like the storyline, it didn't captivate me. It made me, I was reading but my brain was thinking about other things. And I like a book that when I'm reading it, I'm there in the story, not thinking about, what I'm having for dinner next day. So I gave that one a 3 stars. Maybe I'll give it another try in a couple of years' time. Maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. But for me personally, it's definitely not one of Jane Austen's best pieces of work. The next book is probably the least favourite book I've ever read in my whole entire life. And when I read the blurb of this book, it sounded so good, and that was George Sanders' Lincoln in the Bardo. The first chapter was good, and then you're influxed with so many different characters speaking over each other and interrupting each other and butting in. I got so confused as to what was happening, who was speaking. if the story they were all trying to tell was the same story, was different stories, was of the same time, I got so confused. And to be honest, I don't know how I managed to finish the book because I was that confused. And I was even more confused once I finished than when I started. So it's not a great read for me. So I gave that one a 2-star. Again, I did really want to read it. It's a historical fiction and it's based around Abraham Lincoln and his son who passes away. And what I think is the story is between the son passing away and the day of the funeral, possibly? I'm not 100% sure. So maybe somebody needs to go and check that out if they want to read it. I personally didn't like it, won't read it again, and is actually a book that I've already on hold. A lot of these books I have actually already on hold, which is unfortunate because I didn't know at the time that I was going to be doing this video. We live and we learn. Maybe I'll learn for next year, who knows. The next book is a book that I haven't on hold yet actually, and that was Joseph Heller's Catch-22. It was chunky. I personally found there was a lot of filler chapters in here. I would have found it a lot more digestible if it had been 150, 200 pages shorter. I got confused by the amount of characters and I couldn't work out if we were having jumps in the timelines or if it was all set in a chronological timeline. And I think what I struggled most is I read a chapter and I would understand what's happening, and then the next couple of chapters I'd be completely confused, not understand what's going on. Then the next couple of chapters I'd be like, right, okay, perfect, I've got it. And then the next chapter I'm totally lost again. So somebody maybe chime in below in the comment section and let me know if it's a continuous timeline, if we ever jump in time periods. I just got a bit confused and it took me so long to read. It really did take me so long to read. But I did finish it. I gave it a 2.5 stars. But yes, probably one I'm not going to be reading again. The second to last book is J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. I think that's how you pronounce it. And this is not partly my fault, this is entirely my fault. So I asked for a recommendation from Shoot From The Hip. Go check out that video if you haven't. There's a slight mental breakdown halfway through the filming in there. And one of the guys, Sam Russell, recommended this book for me. And as somebody who's never read any of the Lord of the Rings or seen any of the Lord of the Rings, it was the most confusing, mind-bending book I've ever listened to. I did audiobook it, and I'm really glad I did because there were so many characters whose names were so similar that there was no way I was going to be able to pronounce them correctly if I was reading it. There was just a lot going on, but I feel if I'd read The Lord of the Rings or at least seen the movies, I would have had a much better idea of what was going on. So again, that one was on me, that wasn't necessarily on the book. But I did finish it, I did persevere, I did finish it, and I gave it a 2 stars. Which brings us to our very last book. And that was one that I read in December. And it was A Very Merry Manhattan Christmas. I debated whether to put this book in this video or not, because I really enjoyed the first half. the second half lent so heavy, bear in mind it's only quite a short book, it lent so heavy on the romance side that I found it quite cheesy and just to a point where it was really unbelievable. And I ended up losing all interest and feeling for the characters, which is a shame because in the first half I really liked the main female character and the sweet friendship she had with the main male character. I knew it was a romance when I picked it up, I just didn't realise how heavily romantic it would be in such a short space of time. I feel it would have been better if it had been like spread out more evenly throughout the book, but that's just my opinion. And I mean, I'm not somebody who really enjoys romance books anyway, but I did finish it and I did give it a 3-star, so I feel it is one of my more favourite reads in my least favourite reads of the year, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you like romance and you like Christmas books, then it's probably a really good read. It just wasn't for me. And there we have it. There are only 7 books this year that I read. Last year, that I read that I didn't really enjoy. So that was a really good reading year. And I'm hoping that 2026 will be even better and that I possibly don't even have to do a least favourite video. Who knows? Anyway guys, thank you for joining me and I'll see you again soon. Bye!